May 2023 Plan Commission meeting. It's 7 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Kelly, will you call the roll?
Okay, Diane Scott.
Yes.
Absent. Kevin Krulik.
Here.
Corey Coots.
Here.
Brian Tandy.
Here.
Heather Schaller.
Here.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
And Lori Gross. Here.
Okay, thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Or entertain a motion for those?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. I don't see any old business. We'll move on to new business. We have docket 23-26. Gradison Land Development is requesting a PUD for 140 acres proposed mixed-use development called Spring Creek. The property is generally located at the northwest corner of State Road 39 and 300 North. Ben, will you tell us about that?
Evening, Commission members. Just to walk through a little bit, maybe just the procedure related to plan unit development rezones. It is a multi-step process, starting with this hearing before the Plan Commission tonight. Plan unit development rezone is a process by which the applicant, and working with staff, essentially write standards associated with the district. So where they need additional design flexibility than our Unified Development Ordinance allows, they essentially write their own standards associated with that. And where that's really helpful, and that's what you see in this case, is where you've got a mixed-use development, where you've got multiple different residential and or commercial product types. We don't have any one zoning district that allows for all those use types. So essentially what they do here is they write an ordinance that allows those different use types and then the standards associated with each one of those. So that's actually really helpful in the case like we have here tonight for mixed-use development to go through that process. As I mentioned, the process starts here at the Plan Commission. Plan Commission's role is to review the plan unit development ordinance and the proposal and provide a recommendation that then is forwarded to the Common Council. The Common Council then determines that, evaluates that recommendation and the proposal by the applicant. And if they decide then to move forward with it, then they would adopt via ordinance the plan unit development, and then that would establish essentially the law for the piece of property. If that were to take place and the ordinance was adopted, then the applicant would come back and go through a preliminary plan or primary plat phase where they bring additional detail to staff and back to Plan Commission that'll show more detail on road layouts, lot layouts, landscape standards or landscape planning, and those sorts of things, and additional elevations for residential units and things like that. So this is the first phase. You're going to see that if there's a lot that's in text in this stage, and that's really the ordinance. You'll get a lot more details on how the site will lay out specifically, as well as what it will look like in design, what the design will look like at that preliminary planning phase, which comes back to the Plan Commission once the ordinance is adopted. So that's a real quick rundown of the next steps here related to the plan unit development ordinance. Now we'll kind of walk through the site itself. And we'll start, if they want to pull the screen up. I think I got everything plugged in. This is the site in question, just to orient yourselves. 300 North is adjacent to the property here on the south. State Road 39 is adjacent here to the east. And then the CSX Railroad is adjacent to the west. So that gives you an idea. It's about 140 acres. The creek runs just along this eastern boundary and this diagonal line that you see here along the property boundary. So their only road access is on is on 300 North, and then a small section of it right here on State Road 39. Just to back out a little bit with the next map here, just to show you, how, some of the philosophy when we were looking at this property with the applicant and what might be appropriate in terms of a land use. So I wanted to back out and show you this. This is actually a road classification map that was put together for the LEAP district and for the Eli Lilly project, as they were looking at some of the road improvements in the area. And again, on this map, I've highlighted in yellow the site in question tonight, but then just to show you a little bit about what's going on in this area. So many of you are aware, some of you may not be. There is a proposed interchange that's going to be constructed on Interstate 65 somewhere in the area of 300 North, maybe a little bit north of that, but somewhere in the vicinity of 300 North. That interchange will then provide additional east-west access along 300 North to the north side of the community. So we really expect, and you can see here, this is 300 North is classified as a major east-west corridor, and I'll show you here in a second what the proposed cross-section. But we really expect traffic to increase notably in the 300 North and 39 area, given the fact that there will now be direct access to interchange 65 on the north side of the community, directly from 300 to 300 North area. And so in addition to a 300 North seeing significant improvements, we also expect at the intersection of 300 North and 39 to also see significant improvements as well, just because the levels of traffic on both 300 North and 39 are going to increase notably. So we really expect this to become a busier area at this intersection. So as we were looking at with the applicant, we talked about the idea of having multiple different residential product types, and then also the potential for a small commercial node that would be at the corner there, again, given this is a much more active and it'll be a much busier intersection out here, to provide some sort of commercial node on the 300 North corridor, which over time may become our major east-west corridor on the north side of the community, accessing both northwest and northeast in the community. So just for orientation here as well, you can see the boundaries, what will be the LEAP district. This large site that you see right here that I'm highlighting with the cursor is the Eli Lilly site that's under construction right now, essentially just northwest of this site across the railroad tracks. So very close proximity. Will provide some additional residential and commercial retail options to folks that will live and or work in this area, particularly the Eli Lilly site, which is the first known user in the LEAP district. So again, as I mentioned, we talked to them about providing a more dense mixed-use development at this intersection, given some of these improvements that are being made in this area. So I mentioned, so right now, as we're all familiar with 300 North, that's right now just a two-lane county road. This is the cross-section of the eventual improvements of 300 North. You see a four-lane boulevarded cross-section, about 140 feet wide. So the makeup of 300 North and the development opportunities in the area are going to be significantly changing as this development starts to occur and as the interchange gets constructed and opens up. So we're going to see a much more significant thoroughfare on 300 North, handling a lot more traffic than it does now, based on the improvements that are proposed at the current time. So walking through the site specifically, then, with that additional background, the development that's proposed, let me zoom in on this a little bit here. And I'll let the applicant provide a lot more detail than I will. I'll just give you a brief overview. What they propose here is a concept plan, shows again that site that I outlined in yellow. And what they're showing is 4 different distinct areas within the overall development. Area A would be represented by single-family detached housing, a maximum number of 170 lots or units. So they're still laying out the exact road network and lot layout, but right now they're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 170 single-family homes, which would be in this Area A, which is this lighter brown area to the north end of the site. Area B would be duplexes, single-family attached. And those duplexes, I think let's see, up to 130 units. So that would be 65 duplexes, 130 units total. And those would be proposed in Area B, which is in this middle section here. So you'll see here in a second that we're going essentially from the least dense to the north to the most dense to the south, adjacent to 300 North, which would be the most active area. Area C would be represented by townhomes, and we've got a maximum number of 100 units. It would be proposed within Area C for the townhomes, which is in this kind of greenish, grayish area to the south and central area here. And then, as I mentioned before, as we talked about, Area D would be the commercial node that's at the intersection of 300 North and 30, State Road 39. So Area D would be represented here at that intersection. So in addition to establishing the uses permitted, and again, we talked about single-family detached duplexes, townhomes, and then commercial node, which the commercial node essentially follows the planning business commercial uses that would be permitted there. They establish standards for each one of those districts, which I've outlined in the staff report, for minimum lot areas, lot widths, setbacks, et cetera, as well as architectural standards that address anti-monotony, what will be required on corner lots in terms of number of windows on the street-facing side, what will be required in terms of architectural elements on front facades, such as requiring masonry wainscot, along with siding styles, windows and garage doors and architectural features, landscape standards associated with those residential lots, in addition to any buffers required between along the perimeters of the property, along the thoroughfares, and or in between commercial areas and residential areas. Let me make sure I touch on everything here. I think that kind of, they'll go into a lot more detail. I won't show you the elevations, the conceptual elevation, let the applicant walk through those with you. On the commercial side, they're still working on this is something that'll probably come after the residential product starts developing. But they're looking at a primary or anchor tenant with a series of outlots along 300 North. They've established parking requirements for those uses, and then also how the developments or commercial development signage would work in terms of multi-tenant signs along both 300 North and 39. And then also there is a proposal for a fueling station at the corner and what signage is permitted there. And then again, looking at then the landscaping requirements of the ordinance in terms of the commercial landscape standards that would be required as part of that. While they do intend to meet those standards, it does allow some flexibility to adjust those standards up to 10% of the UDO standard based on the actual layout. And again, this will all be coming back to you later. You'll see preliminary plan, primary plat stages that shows additional detail. And then in addition, all those commercial lots will come in for development plan where you'll see exactly what will be proposed in terms of building layouts, parking layouts, landscaping, elevation designs, et cetera. So this is a multiple step process. We're really at the conceptual planning stages, kind of the bubble diagram you see here, and there's a lot of steps to come where you'll get more detail. But what we're really doing right now is looking at the standards that will essentially set the framework for what happens moving forward in this site. In terms of looking at PUD ordinance and decision criteria, there are a handful of those, and I'll walk through those here relatively quickly and then turn it over to the applicant to walk through some additional detail for you. The first decision criteria is the extent to which the proposal fulfills the requirements and intent of the comprehensive plan and other applicable planning studies or reports. So I had identified here that the 2019 comprehensive plan, which some of you may have participated in that process a few years ago. One thing I will point out before I talk about the comp plan is there are a lot of things that have happened in the last 4 years since we did that comprehensive plan that we really had no opportunity to predict at that time. Certainly the LEAP district is one of them, so a lot has changed in our future land use planning that we're doing for the city, and we're actually getting ready to probably do a pretty significant update to the comprehensive plan as a result. But the one thing I will note is that the comprehensive plan identified this area as single-family residential, which a primary portion of this is residential in nature. But again, given the nature of the included commercial node in the proposed development, the plan is not entirely consistent with the future land use designation. However, as I mentioned previously, the comprehensive plan is intended to be an educated guess of the location, amount, and potential of development with a 5 to 7 year time horizon. At the time the future land use map was created 3+ years ago, the committee had no way to anticipate the construction of a new north side interchange along with significant upgrades at 300 North accessing the site. In addition, a LEAP district and a Eli Lilly project just west of this area will add demand for additional housing types and commercial services. The committee could not have contemplated the opportunity for a significant mixed-use development of this nature in this area, absent these additional improvements. Outside of the future land use map, this development checks the boxes of many objectives of the plan, including creating opportunities for diverse housing options, ensuring new housing developments reflect community character, expanding park and public space programming, and ensuring opportunities for diverse commercial development, among others. The second criteria is the concurrent conditions and character of current structures and uses in each zoning district. Spring Creek PUD is in an area of the community that is primarily undeveloped at this time. However, this area is just north and adjacent to the developed Lebanon area and in the path of growth considering the expectations of a LEAP district and infrastructure improvements. The third is the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adopted. And as previously stated, this Spring Creek PUD helps to further many of the objectives established in the adopted comprehensive plan. The proposal creates a desirable mix of land uses based on proximity and access to the interstate and to other amenities and services. The fourth is the conservation of collective property values throughout the city of Lebanon as a whole. It is not anticipated that the development proposed by the applicant will have a negative impact on property values throughout the city. The proposal should have a positive impact on values, in fact. And the final is responsible growth and development. This site is directly north and adjacent to the developed north side of Lebanon. The development will require an extension of utilities from the south that will be the responsibility of the developer. All utilities will be sized to accommodate anticipated additional growth in the immediate vicinity. So again, it does represent responsible growth and development. And with that staff conclusion, in review of the submitted plan unit development rezone and ordinance as presented, Lebanon Planning staff finds compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance established design criteria and recommends the Plan Commission forward the plan unit development rezone and ordinance for Spring Creek to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation. With that, if you have any general questions for me about process, I'd be happy to answer them, and then I'll be happy to turn it over to the applicant to walk through the development in further detail.
Thank you, Ben. Does anybody have initial questions for Ben? Okay. The applicant care to step forward?
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name's Adam Mears. I'm with Gradison Land Development. Here with me is Mark Gradison of Gradison Land Development, Chris Miller of Beezer Homes, and we're happy to be here today to talk about Spring Creek. As always, Ben does a fantastic job laying out the plan. It's been great working with the planning staff and Kevin on this project, and what an exciting time to be involved in this area with everything that's happening in Lebanon. We've done, as Gradison, a couple projects in Lebanon. Clearly, has been said before, all this stuff has blown up with the LEAP District and Lilly, and it's quite an exciting time, and we're excited to, I think, help this area grow with additional housing and needed services that are going to need to be on this corridor. Gradison Land Development, we're a local company out of Indianapolis. We develop residential developments primarily, all around central Indiana, down in Cincinnati as well. And again, we've got two projects here in Lebanon and have been here long enough and worked with the staff long enough, and at least I feel like we have a great relationship with the city and have always enjoyed working with the team. And the same with this project. We started discussions with Ben and Matt and Kevin several months ago talking about this piece of ground, the idea for the housing needs that are coming with the LEAP District and Lilly, and trying to come up with something that is not just, here's 400 homes, we're going to drop them in, and a little more creative, multiple different products, and again, a commercial node of about 25 acres to allow for services that are going to be needed by not only the 400 new homes and rooftops, but all of the people that are going to be coming up and down now, the new interchange and 300 as that continues to expand, and all the employees who will be working at Lilly, and then all the other ancillary things that'll start popping up when you bring that many people to an area. Currently, it's zoned SF as we're working through finalizing the annexation, and as Ben said, we're proposing a PUD because of all the various products. If it were simply just one product and we were going to do one particular lot size, maybe it would make sense for just a straight rezone to one of the rezone districts, but in this case, PUD really makes a lot of sense. It allows for flexibility to have these different products, to have different lot sizes, setbacks, densities, to allow then more land dedicated and protected for open space than what would necessarily be required in a traditional rezone, and allows for better planned community with activity for community connection, which I think is important. Our goal here and the vision with Spring Creek, we do take a lot of pride in our neighborhoods. Again, with Mark and Joe Gradison being the owners of our company, their names being all over every one of our developments, and they're always around. It's important to us to keep that name the way that, as hard as they've worked to make that name be what it is, we take a lot of pride in our developments and our communities. We want to use design and achieve goals that preserve as much of the existing landscape, but also bring features that bring a community together. And we want to make it with various home types that people can call home. So the goals we have here are to really create a unique mixed use planned community with a mix of residential and commercial, a variety of home styles to meet the needs of those moving to Lebanon and wanting to stay or move up. Again, with townhomes, which clearly would be maintenance free, the Duet product, the attached single family to 130 in the area B, which we'll get to in a minute, those will also be maintenance free, so taking care of all the grounds, the lawn, the mulch, the shrubs, the snow of the snow removal on the driveways. And then the traditional single family will be simply a traditional single family that won't have maintenance included. But again, it allows for people to even stay in the same community, that maybe you start out in a townhome and you move to the single family residential, and then as you age older, maybe move into one of the duets. It allows you to not only have people come in and have a variety of choices, but people to stay in the area that they've come to love. But maybe I don't need the big single-family home anymore and I'm tired of mowing my yard, so let's just stay here with all these people that we've gotten to know and just move into a different product. So we really think providing this variety of home styles is an important part of this PUD. Bringing product and lot details that are important to consumer demand. Internal trails and amenities, and I'll talk about amenities here in a minute, but we want to promote people coming together. And I think our initial layout design as we have here, and as we continue to progress further, and those become more solidified, I think it will meet that goal. The commercial development, again, 300 becoming a major thoroughfare, there's going to be need for commercial with the additional homes, having 25 acres set aside for outlots, a gas station, a major anchor tenant will really serve the area, and they're going to need it up there. There's currently not water and sewer in the area, so we're going to be involved in getting that up into that area, which I think is going to be incredibly important. And we've already worked and been involved with both INDOT and Lebanon Utilities on the traffic impact analysis, and we'll continue to work with staff on whatever appropriate improvements are needed in the vicinity of our project. Again, this is just showing the layout again. The brown area up at the top, let's see, up here again, this is the traditional single family, the duplex product, and then the townhomes, and then over here the 25 acres of commercial. And as Ben mentioned, the idea is to go kind of, as you get closer to the street, a little more dense, and then slowly move up into the less dense of the product, which again, we think is best use of this area. Right now, it's the maximum units of 170 of the traditional single family, 130 of the attached, and 100 townhomes. Again, this is not a fully engineered plan yet, so those will become reality as we continue down the primary plat stage. And again, clearly, as Ben mentioned, this commission is going to be heavily involved in that process, as well as we go through the plan and getting more detailed and drilling down to more specifics. Some highlights of the architectural standards that we think are important to point out. Again, the mix of elevations with anti-monotony provision. Single-family dwellings having minimum first floor masonry on the front facade wainscot up to the lowest first floor windowsills, but in addition, 2 siding styles and at least 1 additional architectural feature. Again, the idea is to not have every home look the same, and again, Ben has always done a good job of working to make sure that we're stepping up our game architecturally and adding those additional features. There will be overhangs, Ben. Inside joke a little bit, but talking about the roofs here, all front garage doors will have windows. I do want to point out that one of the images I'm going to show you doesn't have windows on the garage, but the PUD agreement that we went through that you have in your packet does say that they all will have windows. We just don't have a rendering yet with those windows. The number of windows on the corner lots and regular 3 stories I know is very important to, again, not just have one side that doesn't have any windows. And then the dusk to dawn coach light are similar on the front of each home, which we think adds a great look. Just a representative image of a single family home. You can see there's the wainscot going around. Again, imagine a couple windows on the garage. Really good looking product, and again, there'll be 170, clearly not all looking like that with the anti-monotony provision, but in that spirit. This is, again, the same with the duets, an idea of representation of what those look like. And again, they all meet a different type of buyer, which I think is the key here. When you're really doing a planned community, you got to think about being able to provide products that are going to meet all the various potential buyers that are going to need housing in this area. And then a representation of the townhomes that we would anticipate. Again, we haven't drilled down specifically to the number of units in each particular building, And as we get through and start going through again, primary platting and more detailed plan, those will drill down. But as always, we'll work with staff as we continue to move down that path. Just a little thing about entry monumentation, we take, the entryways mean a lot to us. So it's important that we get a design that's, again, looks good and meets the area, and we'll do that. We clearly haven't started designing, but just want you to know, we'll take a lot of pride in that entryway, knowing that, again, it's going to be home to 400 rooftops and the commercial area just to the east. We want to make sure we have a welcoming entryway that's properly landscaped and looks great for the community. Amenities, again, we haven't drilled down our entire development plan yet. These are some ideas that we have from dog park, pickleball courts, which now are the new hot thing, some type of fire pit amenity, and then on the top left, a little more outside the box, but something, again, that's outside, that brings people together in an open space where there's lighting, an area for people to come and bring their pets and their kids and have some area to play. That's where our head's at from an amenity standpoint. Again, we want this community to be something where people come together. And we think all of these amenities together will help, one way or another, will help meet that goal of not just making a community where people stay in their houses, but get out and get to know each other and walk to the commercial areas, and again, meet and have evenings outside that bring people together. We would anticipate this project, once we get through this entire process and start digging, would think it'd probably be about a 5-year build out. Same with the commercial. And again, understanding the commercial would probably go a little bit slower, but we would anticipate the large tenant or large user coming in first, and then slowly, once those get developed, then slowly dealing with the outlots and future things there. Again, which, as Ben made clear as well, you will all be heavily involved in that process, as will staff. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, Mark's here as well, and appreciate your time. And again, we're excited about this area of Lebanon, and honored to be able to be here in front of you today presenting this project. Thank you. Yeah.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So on the amenities in the top corner, the
Yeah.
top, where you had the lights and the
Yeah.
seating, will that be, it kind of look like Midtown and Carmel, is that kind of this, with restaurants and?
That was our
outdoor?
thought. I don't know that there's going to be restaurants, but our thought was something like that. Again, an area to bring people together. Totally off. My son was over there a couple nights ago with his friends, and he's like, I can't believe how many people with their young kids were out there playing the ping pong tables and those kind of things. Mark and I know when we originally started talking about this, that was kind of one of the big ideas, is to try to do something like that again is going to bring people together. I don't think there'll be restaurants in there.
No, okay.
But similar idea to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Is there a plan for like some green space as far as, I'm trying to, a little unclear on that, like?
Yeah, there-
Park for families to go to?
Yeah, there will be green space. Again, we haven't devised the whole plan yet. I mean, generally, we like to be 25%, or more even, of open space. I get the feeling Mark is,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
There's
Mark's
a park right
kind of
there.
pointing in this middle area just next to the pond.
No,
And the green as well. But inside each of these developments, there'll have to be some pockets of open space as well. Again, I think we do, at least in our planning, a good job of planning plenty of green space. And I can assure you that the planning staff takes that seriously as well, and will push us in making sure we have plenty of open space as well. But yes, we will have plenty of open space.
another question.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you do have other developments in the Indianapolis area. Can you name some, like, that we might be familiar with, that we can kind of,
Tell me where. We've got things in Whiteland, we've got,
do you have anything close, like in Carmel or Zionsville or Whitestown or? I know Walker Farms was a beach.
we have 2 in Lebanon.
Okay.
Sunbrook and Sunbrook Villas.
Just jump up. Hello, sorry about that. So you're speaking for Beazer, for their
Well,
homes?
but
to
he
build
was
this-
talking about developments, just like the different neighborhoods and the PUDs and, yeah.
Yeah, so we have certainly several of them. In Noblesville, we've got Brooks Farm, which is about a 325 unit development. I'm trying to think of
39.
the size. Yeah, 339 units. We're just starting another one in Noblesville called Magnolia Ridge, which is kind of similar in that it's got 4 or 5 different styles of homes. We can show you those plans as well, but Brooks Farm's almost 3/4 of the way done. We're just finishing amenities right now. As far as other larger ones, we really don't have anything.
They're mixed products. Again, we've got something down in Whiteland, that's a mixed product.
I noticed the Stonegate on there, were you guys,
No, are you talking about the entry sign?
Yes.
No, I just grabbed some representative entry signs
Gotcha.
that we like.
okay.
Down in Lebanon, we've got, or down in, in Whiteland, we've got a mixed-use development that has both duplexes, single-family, and then we're bringing on another just single-family attached, maintenance-free product. We've got 20-some developments in various stages, so I'd be happy to, offline, if you'd like, I can send you a list of some things and be happy to share it with you, sure.
I didn't know if those developments also have that outdoor living to where you make it a community that,
Yeah,
Brooks has a large, we're doing what's, like, we call it the Brooks Barn. A barn with some tables, a gathering space under the barn, that has a pool, which I don't believe we have planned for here. But yeah, the intent is always to bring, in Indianapolis requires, for example, we've got a couple in Indianapolis that require grilling, grills and shelters and things like that, but a lot of trails, interworking trails. Our Magnolia Ridge development's going to have an entire trail system, that's in Noblesville, with, again, a large gathering space in the middle. So a lot of it just depends on the community, the ground, how many units we have. Clearly, we've got a development in Indianapolis that only has 61 units. There's not a whole lot of space for a big amenity, but when you start getting into 300+ units, we create a lot of trails, and again, with the idea of trying to bring people together.
okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
In regards to Area D,
Yeah.
I'm reading through and see a lot kind of refers back to the UDO.
Uh-huh.
But I just want to confirm, so the commercial building materials, that's going to be basically matched to our existing UDO, correct?
Correct.
So
Yes.
masonry, facades, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, there was not, I don't believe, at least architecturally standards-wise, there was much, if any, deviation from the UDO.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, that commercial part is the biggest part. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, I think there's some flexibility for the anchor tenant because it's back behind the outlots to be able to have some adjustments. But I would even mention, we've actually increased the standards because 39 is the only thing in the thoroughfare overlay district. We actually are also committing everything along 300 North to meet the thoroughfare overlay district standards too, which was
Okay.
not required by UDO.
Yep. And then, is there any type of restrictions on foot candles, lumens, I don't know what you refer to it as, but the lights on the facades that may face residential in the area?
Yeah, they will meet all of our UDO requirements.
Do we, I don't,
We
sorry.
require shielding at property lines where adjacent to residential is 0.3-foot candles, which is essentially, I mean,
Very
a
little.
full moon will be brighter than
Okay.
0.3-foot candles.
Perfect.
So yeah, we have all the shielding requirements and the foot candle measurement requirements.
Awesome. And I promise you, I wrote this down before you said a word about it. But I'm going to use the word overhangs. So
They're overhangs.
I know we're at 8 inches on the single family and the duplexes.
Right.
Did not notice an overhang on the townhomes. And then, are we feeling pretty good about the 8-inch overhang elsewhere, Ben?
I mean, The joke about the overhangs was when we first came here, the first time we ever met Ben, he was like, overhang, every conversation was about overhangs. So I got the picture that Ben wants his overhangs and he will always get his overhangs.
Right.
I think we proposed 8 because that's what we've done in the past, and there were a lot of, I'll be honest with you, there were a lot of comments that came from staff, mostly related to the commercial side, dealing with, hey, I don't like what you've done with that standard, that's
Right.
too loose. The overhangs, I think, were not modified just simply because I think 8-inch is what's generally been the standard. And there appear to be overhangs
Right.
on the townhomes as well.
Okay, perfect. I was looking through, didn't
Right.
see it there. From specifically the commercial area, is that parking requirement very similar to what we would in other commercial areas in town?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, these may be more aimed at Ben now.
It is relatively similar. It's simplified. I actually prefer, just a square footage requirement rather than ours. It says like based on number of employees and seats and all with everything. So this is
Right.
it's a simplified, but yeah, 1 per 300 is a pretty typical for commercial space.
Okay, and then two, fueling stations, currently a moratorium on fueling stations within the overlay district, I believe.
Yeah, so that's why
this PUD would,
we've specifically written in the ability for there to be one fueling station.
One within this
Based on this
PUD.
PUD ordinance.
and then kind of a higher level view, so, final plans aren't done specifically on this PUD, so if we do have to make some sort of an amendment to the PUD or any PUD, just for my knowledge, what does that process look like compared to, say, a rezone?
It essentially it has to go back and follow that same process. So it would be if the plan commission needed an amendment, then it would come back here for a recommendation and have to be adopted by council.
And then as far as noticing, so like if you rezone, you've got to notice within a square footage area or a square mile area and so forth. So that would be similar in the PUD process?
Any amendment would also be noticed. The primary plat will send out notices. Any development plans, there'll also be notices. So
Okay.
all the stages will have notices. So the folks that are living in the area will get notice anytime there's any updates or anything, new information that comes out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I had a lot.
I have one for you, Ben. I think I heard you say when you were doing your opening comments, the overview of everything. Thank you, sorry. I think you said something about there would be no negative impact on the homes in the city of Lebanon. What about the homes that are in that immediate vicinity? Because we still have a lot of, you talked about that corridor changing 300 North. We still have a lot of residential property along there.
Yeah, I guess, is there a general impact? Yes. The area is developing and changing. I guess the question is there a negative impact? Typically, when development occurs and roads are improved and infrastructure comes to the area, values actually increase rather than decrease. So we really don't see that there's going to be a significant negative impact associated with development because development usually increases property values because it brings additional amenities and services to the area.
Even for those on 300 North, you're saying?
On the whole area is, the fact that there's going to be a 140-foot right-of-way come through there with a boulevard street, there is going to be an impact.
Yeah, okay.
But not specifically due to this project. That's,
All the big changes that are
Right.
Yeah,
happening.
everything that's happening in this area is going to impact this area. The interchange is probably the biggest impact because that's going to significantly increase traffic on the north side.
Traffic, yeah.
Will the homes on 300, will they be able to tap into the sewer?
So sanitary sewer and water will be coming from the south up to this area. If the homes on 300 are having some sort of issue and need to go to connect to sanitary sewer, they could. We typically request them to be annexed to the city in order to receive city services, but there is a process to do that.
Any other questions for Ben or the applicant?
Hey, Ben, given some of the comments I heard, do you think it would be beneficial on, area C to add a line for overhangs? And then, given all the input we heard on the open space area, that's really not, there's no defined requirements in the PUD. do we need to go back and revisit that one?
We don't need to, where it's not addressed in the PUD ordinance, the UDO standards apply. So we just go back to the overhang requirement that's identified for multifamily in the UDO. And same with open space, I believe it's a 12% open space requirement, I think it is what it is in the UDO.
Any more questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak, please make sure you
Thank you,
sign
guys.
in
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
and try to limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I already signed in. I'm Mark Michael from 815 West 300 North. First thing I'd like to say is all this brief's great, sounds great, and might be great, but not now. I moved here 2 years ago after retiring from the military, wanted to get out into the country and away from everything else, only to find 6 months later that I get a letter in the mail that they're going to build houses across the street. That died down, I thought, and then now here we are back in the same boat, and I have the same issues or concerns on that. The no negative impact to houses on 300, that's cute. We all know it's going to have a huge impact to the houses on 300. That's all anybody's talking about because there's very little information being given to the houses on 300 until it's too late. We have no idea what's going on. We have a house in the middle that was purchased because of the Lily, then we have nothing. We hear all these rumors, but all we get is there's going to be no negative impact, and we all know that's not true. I apologize, I got to look at my notes because I will skip something. First thing is the infrastructure is not in place. I know that eventually the roads will be improved, but when and as this goes along. The utilities, it's going to increase. We already have all heard about the big issue with the water, where's it coming from, all that with Lily. And now we're adding 400 new homes. That's going to drastically increase the water. Railroad tracks are falling apart. I know he says doing the interchange for 39 is going to drastically increase the traffic. Well, it's already almost doubled with the construction traffic that's been in there and everybody going around Witt Road and not able to go on 375 and things like that. Sounds like a bomb going off every time a semi hits that tracks at 40, 50 mile an hour because they're not slowing down. Same way with the dump trucks. Sorry, I was hearing the comments. With the infrastructure, the town can't even get a trash company that can effectively pick up trash, and yet we're going to add 400 additional homes to impact that with the utilities. Like I said, the traffic has probably increased double, and then when you pack all those people in one location, it's going to drastically increase the crime. We're already having issues in the main downtown. You put that out in the country a little bit, and with all these people there, it's going to just drastically increase. And this law enforcement, the department can't handle that.
3 minutes.
We talk about widening the roads, but yet when on the maps here, we don't see anything about that. It butts up right to 300. How's that going to look? Is then the road always going to go to the south, or are they going to split that? If they're doing the development, then they should take that into account, so we know how that's going to go. And then, I guess lastly, the big thing is just there's too many projects going on at one time, and not having the road on there as being widened is just a key indication that things are going to get lost, and they're going to get forgotten, and then at the last second, it's going to have to change. I mean, we have Lily going on, we have the 65 interchange, we have all the roads that are going to be improved, not to even mention the rest of the Leak District. And there's so much going on that not only can the citizens not keep up with everything, there's a meeting tonight that people aren't allowed or aren't able to go to because they're here, about 32. They're scheduling meetings on top of meetings. and can't keep everybody informed and can't keep up themselves with the different renderings. So we just need to slow down, look at the infrastructure, and then do the improvements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comment?
Hello, John Dyson, 825 West, 375 North. Not so much a comment as more of a question. There was a few slides that showed kind of a north thoroughfare on the main plan. I understand that it's not a final plan today, but I think conventional wisdom for subdivision design would show that there needs to be an entrance on the north side, and I was just wondering if that particular area has been finalized, if some of the neighbors up there have been communicated that that's coming, or, you know, what the official plans for that are?
We can talk to them.
Okay, sure.
We'll let the applicant address that here in a second. Is there any other comments? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Adam or Mark, you guys want to address any of those?
Thank you. So to address the last comment as far as the neighbors to the north and the main thoroughfare going up there. So yes, we've made provisions for a stub for connectivity up to the north, but just trying to focus on the site that we have today. And then if the opportunity presents itself for us to be able to connect to 375, then we have that ability to do so. That'll be years down the road. That'll be the last part of our development as we go. We would like to be able to connect, but we also wanted to focus on this part of the site first, and then we can come back to that connection possibility. Or if for some reason someone else develops that area besides us, then we still have that connectivity to our neighborhood, just create that for the city. As far as the, excuse me, the first comments that we heard, so I think, you know, there's always the chicken or the egg that's out there. And is it the infrastructure has to go first, or does the development come in to help with the infrastructure and all that? I guess one of the things I'd like to make sure everybody knows is that we're 5 to 7 years out before we have the commercial occupied and running, and we have 400 rooftops in there. It doesn't all land tomorrow. It doesn't land in 2024. It's going to be all the way till 2029, in somewhere in that neighborhood, before we have something that's a full development. And things are going to morph, right? Lebanon today with what's going on, that's all the exciting things that are happening. There has to be decisions that are made, looking at, you know, on a go-forward basis on what's going to be the best. Working with staff on a weekly basis, as well as NDOT, as far as what's going to be planned, where's the interchange going to be, what's 300 going to look like. Those are all things that we're learning along the way as well. We had originally planned to come in 8 or 9 months ago to file. And just with everything going on, we felt like it was better for us to wait. Let's let some of the balls drop and see what happens, and see if we can't come up with the best plan for this piece of property instead of rushing into something before. So we feel like we'll address those things, maybe not right away, right? Because we don't know everything there is to know yet. But as we go through our design development, that's the reason why we're here in a conceptual stage with you today, and not having roads laid out and entryways totally designed, is because we don't know quite yet. We have to stay a little bit flexible enough to make sure that what's happening out at the interchange, what's happening along 300 by the various state agencies, and coordinating then with your city on what's going to happen with 300. And so we're just trying to make sure we stay lockstep in that process. Traffic and crime and all those things, those are all tough things to address, right? Traffic is a science, and we will be going down that road with NDOT, and as well as Kevin and his staff, as far as making sure we come up with a traffic study that works for this site, and that it's approved by those entities, not by us. We'll hire a third-party traffic engineer that comes in to tell us some of the things that we need to be looking for on our site and some of the improvements that we have to do. I think that's most of what I wanted to touch on.
Thank you.
Oh, the utilities part of things, obviously, no utilities on site today. Lebanon Utilities has indicated to us that they have the capacity to handle what we're proposing, and we've been in communication with them over the last 120 days as far as the routing for the off-site water and sanitary that will come to this area. We will also have a small lift station on this site that we didn't talk about before, but about the northern half of the site needs to have a lift station. We can't serve it by gravity sewer. So that'll be there, so there may be some other folks that will hook into us eventually into that lift station as well. I think that's it, unless there's other questions.
Any further questions from the commission? Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a process for Ben if possible. Ben, just from a process standpoint, so first one to address the 140-foot right-of-way, is it contemplated in here or not? Not quite?
In the ordinance?
Well, in the maps that we've seen, it looks like there's an 80 and a half plus a 40.
Specifically? Yeah. It's
Right, okay. So it's close-ish, I think.
Yeah, that's, when we get to the preliminary plan stage, we'll get that nailed down exactly what it needs to be.
Right, which was kind of the next part of this is from a process standpoint. So this is more discussing the general parcel, right, or lot or area, and putting an overlay in over that, essentially the PUD.
Yeah.
Versus specifically where those 130 and the 400 and the 25 acres is going to lay out specifically. So if that slides because NDOT is going to widen that road by another 20 feet, we're not at that point yet. And then kind of the last piece to that is we'd rather have these in front of us now than when NDOT's already got the road designed, because to have the road designed and then have a developer come in and say, oh, by the way, I want to throw in an extra 400 houses on it is going to put us behind. So that's not the ideal way to do it. I understand that, there's a lot happening at once, but I personally would love to see the plans in before we get that final road design, because 400 houses is a lot different than 1,600 houses and the capacities that those roads have to carry, so.
What's helpful then is that NDOT is looking at capacities and intersection improvements, et cetera, then they have a very definitive number of homes and commercial uses that'll be in this area. They can essentially input those into that traffic impact study and figure out exactly what needs to happen, whether it's turn lanes, passing blisters, additional intersection improvements, signals, roundabouts, whatever the case may be. They can plug in specific details on these developments. And another thing to keep in mind, as they mentioned, this is probably a 5-year build-out plus. So we don't have 400 units there tomorrow. This will develop over time as these road improvements are also taking place. So, most of the road improvements in this area are projected to be done, Kevin, by the time Lilly opens, so like 2026, 2027, so along a similar timeline, we're going to see this build out as well.
The interchange is scheduled to open in the spring of '26, and that will include improvements from 52 to the interchange to tie-in points somewhere east of Witt Road on 300. And then 300 from there to and including the intersection of 39 is supposed to be improved within a year of the opening of the interchange. Those are the commitments we've heard from the state to date. The current traffic study, the current analysis, the current environmental study that NDOT is performing includes everything on 300 from probably a half a mile either side of 300 from 52 all the way to 39. So there's a big study and a big project that's underway, and obviously some major improvements that we'll see on that corridor.
Anything else? Okay, so Ben and I were just looking for a recommendation to give to the council.
Yes, just a reminder on what the Plan Commission's role is. Plan Commission would provide a recommendation, positive or negative, that would then be forwarded to the Common Council. So as I had mentioned a while back, we had recommended that the Plan Commission forward the Plan Unit Development Rezoning Ordinance to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation. And just another comment for those in the audience that are concerned about maybe they don't have all the information. Kevin and I are available 5 days a week. Send us an email after hours if we need to get back with you. We'd be happy to share everything we have as we're learning things that are going on with the LEAP district that might impact this area. We're getting information almost daily, updates. So if anybody has any concerns or questions, we're always available to answer questions. That goes to the Plan Commission members too. We don't have to just talk about them at these meetings. We're always available. There's a lot of things happening and a lot of moving parts. So I always encourage people, just please reach out to us. If you're not sure about something, please call and we'll try to address them. Or if there's rumors you're hearing, we'd be happy to try to address them if we can.
Okay, and just further note, this will be read at the next 2 meetings and will be adopted at the second meeting,
Yeah, so.
potentially.
Yeah, let me pull up my calendar here. So if this were forwarded tonight with a recommendation, the first reading of the PUD ordinance would be on the council's agenda for May 22nd, which is next Monday evening. And then the second reading would be on their agenda for June 12th.
Thank you, Ben. I would entertain a motion for a recommendation to the council.
I move in regards to docket 23-26 that we forward the planned unified development, or planned unit development rezone and ordinance to the common council with a favorable recommendation.
Second?
Okay, got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Favorable carries. Thank you. I'll move on to docket 23-30. Spaceco Incorporated is requesting a development plan approval for a hotel and a restaurant development and the Gateway Marketplace development. Ben, will you tell us about that?
Sure thing.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Mr. Tandy. Commission members, give me a second to pull up. This is a development plan application in the Lebanon Gateway Marketplace development. These are 2 lots that if they want to go ahead and pull the screen up, we'll orient you here. So for those familiar, this is the existing Burger King that's just to the east here. Interstate exit ramp is just to the west, and there are these 2 lots that are being considered here. There's multiple things happening here. One is they're gonna do a secondary plat, move this property line a little bit to accommodate the uses a little bit better. That is an administrative process to do that. And then what's before you tonight is a development plan for a Fairfield hotel and a Bar Louie standalone restaurant. But this is the site here. You see, let me pull up my notes here. It is just a little under 4 acres total. And let me get all my notes out here so we can walk through them. Now that we've looked at the site. Let's see, zoom out a little bit more. It's probably a little too far. So this is the site here again. Orientation is the same direction, State Road 32, the North Gateway Avenue to the east of the site. You can see here the proposed restaurant for Bar Louie that sits here. It's about a 5,600 square foot standalone restaurant, and then a 4-story hotel just to the rear of that. There is a shared entrance between the 2 that you see right here, and then a second entrance for the hotel just to the south. ADA spaces along both frontages here, and then a few in the rear for the hotel. Dumpster location is back here to the south of the hotel. You might be asking why there's not a dumpster closer to a restaurant. They actually have an internal room that's refrigerated that they actually throw their trash away inside during the week, and then it's actually taken out for trash pickup once a week, as opposed to them having to walk it to a dumpster every day. So they actually have their own internal trash room that's part of the restaurant, so they don't have to walk it outside. So that's why there's not a second dumpster. You see if there's anybody who's curious about that. There is a shared parking calculation that's been done that shows that they have met our parking requirements on the site, but you can kind of see how the parking lays out across the front here and then around the back and south of the hotel. So that's the general orientation. They have provided a sidewalk connection along the frontage and then a sidewalk connection to the hotel that you see that kind of connects through here. So let me just walk through some of the highlights here. Certainly, our technical advisory committee has reviewed this and looked at all the technical details. We've provided a summary of those in the staff report. Obviously, there's a lot of lengthy things. In fact, the engineer has already responded to most of the comments, and they're back in front of the technical advisory committee's hands to review and make sure that all the proper updates have been done. Planning staff has also reviewed this and provided a number of comments back to the applicant based on site details and also architectural design of the buildings, which we'll walk through here in a second. Walking through the details, they do meet all the applicable site standards for the this is a plan unit development, actually, so that they meet all of the site design standards and setbacks associated with the plan unit development that was established for Lebanon Gateway Marketplace, and those are, again, highlighted in the staff report. And then I mentioned the parking. We've got the calculations here. Barloo is required to have 1 space per 3 seats, plus 1 space per employee. Again, Corey, this, as was mentioned before, these are the very specific requirements we have that I'd love to simplify in our ordinance update. So Barloo is required to have 94 spaces. The Fairfield needs 1 space per room, plus 1 space per employee, plus 1 space per 500 square feet of meeting space, which is 90 spaces. With a shared parking calculation, you can see if you just add those up, it's 184, but if you do a shared parking calculation, they actually are required to have 175 total spaces. They have provided the 176 plus bicycle parking spaces. In terms of lighting, I won't bore you with the foot candle plan, but they have met all the required UDO standards for lighting fixtures and photometrics on the site. In terms of landscaping, you scroll down to the next sheet here, you can get an idea. Again, they have met all of the standards associated with the PUD district, which in most cases mimic our UDO requirements. This is zoomed out to the point where you're not going to be able to count all the trees and shrubs if you wanted to, but I can assure you that there are trees and shrubs around the entire perimeter of the site and in interior parking lot islands, and then also building-based landscaping associated with both the restaurant and the hotel. So they have met all of the applicable landscape standards associated with the site. And then in terms of signage, walk through a couple of them here. They have proposed a sign for the Fairfield that you see highlighted here. I guess I'm going to have to zoom in now. All these pages are all different sizes. They have proposed a ground sign that you see reflected here in the red box that meets all applicable standards for ground signage. And then in terms of wall signs, in architecture, we'll give you a little bit of an idea what that looks like here. This is the Fairfield Inn. This that you see here in the upper left is the front elevation of the building with a wall sign that meets the standards here, and they actually have wall signs on all 4 sides. Again, they meet all the standards in terms of our ordinance for wall signage. And in terms of the materials, they do meet our architectural standards. This is in both the thoroughfare overlay and interstate overlay district, and there is a 50% masonry requirement, and that was one of the elements we had to work through with them. They now do have a stone veneer, which I think is represented where this gray is on the elevation, and then everything else is an ephes material. So they have met all of the masonry requirements. And then, so you can see, again, we also have requirements at the rear, which would face the interstate, also looks like a front elevation. You can see that the back of the hotel here looks very similar to the front of the hotel. So they have met all those standards associated with signage and architecture for the hotel. And then one final, and these are hot off the presses as of Friday, this is the Bar Louie restaurant. You can see here, this would be the front elevation and main entrance that faces Gateway Avenue. And then here on the top right, you can see here's the main entrance that would face Gateway Avenue, and then this would be the elevation that faces South Street to the north. One thing that I wanted to point out here, this was kind of a last-second addition because we had gotten crossways on where the main entrance was actually located based on the site plan. And actually, as I mentioned, the main entrance faces Gateway Avenue. The thoroughfare overlay district requires the main entrance to face the street with the highest classification, which in this case would be South Street. So they have actually oriented the building away from South Street in terms of where the main entrance is located. So this building, actually, we just discovered this last week, is actually going to need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance based on that standard. But we did work with them to actually add some front elevation elements to the north side. Actually, everything you see here with the parapet and the Bar Louie, that's all things that were added on Friday to make this elevation look more like a front elevation, even though that's not a main entrance. So they have addressed our concerns about the architecture on the north side elevation facing South Street to make it look more like a main entrance, but they do still need that variance because the standard specifically says the main entrance has to face South Street. So what I would like tonight for you to consider, they are in a time crunch to get dirt starting to move out there, and we can't issue them an earthwork permit until the development plan has been approved. and I can't approve a development plan until that variance is approved. So what I'd ask you tonight is, while this came in as a single application with the Fairfield Inn and Bar Louie, I'd ask you to consider approval of the development plan associated with the Fairfield Inn, and then we would continue the Bar Louie development plan to the next month's agenda. We may actually have to establish a new docket number for Bar Louie separate and re-advertise that, but we do want to get the development plan for the Fairfield Inn, assuming everybody's comfortable with it, approved tonight, so that they can get an earthwork permit and get started on the site. And then we'll come back next month, once we've confirmed that the variance is approved for that main entrance standard, and then approve the development plan for Bar Louie at next month's Plan Commission meeting.
So is the issue that it looks like a main entrance, but is not the main entrance?
Yeah, so our standard specifically says that the main entrance has to face the street with the highest classification, which is South Street in this case. Because while it may, we've addressed the architecture so it looks more like a main entrance, it's not actually the main entrance. So the standard very specifically says the main entrance has to face South Street, and it doesn't technically in this case.
What if they tell us that it's the main entrance and common sense, they just use the side one? No? All right, good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I reread that section 2 or 3 times to make sure I wasn't missing something. You know, in some cases it says front-like facade, but in this case it actually says the main entrance has to face South Street. It very specifically says the entrance, and the main entrance here is on that east-facing facade, so.
And that's in our UDO?
Yeah, it's in the.
Not within the Gateway PUD?
Yeah,
But it's not contemplated in the Gateway PUD, which is
Yeah.
why it reverts to the UDO.
correct.
I feel smarter tonight, guys.
Where's the air conditioner unit's going to be sitting?
I'll let the applicant address that. I believe they're roof-mounted, but I'll let the applicant address that. And certainly anything that's roof-mounted would have to be screened per ordinance, Keith.
Any further questions for Ben? The applicant care to step forward?
Dylan Reynolds with Spaceco, the civil engineer, representing the developer on this one. I don't have a lot to add other than what Ben kind of went through on the site and kind of the last minute change that we're going through for at least the process for the Bar Louie part, since with that main entrance issue that we're facing that we caught a little late, we feel, you know, just to address it up front, that the site and buildings work better with the entrance on that side. So working with Ben and the staff, dressing up that north entrance to give it the architectural feature and enhancements that kind of makes it feel like that main entrance, even though it's not. So as far as the development itself, not much to add other than what Ben had described. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dylan?
I know where the air
Where's
conditioner.
the air conditioners are going to be covered, right?
Yeah, I believe they're all roof mounted and
How are you
screened.
going to cover those from the on-ramp?
I believe there's a parapet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
Step up to the mic, please.
Alex Gobin with the Lebanon Hotel Group and the owner-developer on the project.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So
Good evening.
hotel, each room has its own PTEC unit. And there's only a couple of them, they actually serve, make up air in the hallways. Otherwise, that's all we have, the air condition. Each room has, and they actually, it doesn't expose outside, there's a metal grill on top of that.
okay.
Yes, sir.
We just don't want to see it from the interstate on
No,
the
sir.
on-ramp or off-ramp.
No, there's actually, each room has its own, only small unit that does the makeup here in the hallways, that will not expose from the anywhere.
Okay.
Thank you.
Speaking of the interstate, Ben, if our UDO references the highest volume or highest level of road, would it not be the interstate?
I think in this case, that's associated with the thoroughfare overlay district, so not the interstate overlay district. So I think in that case, you're looking at local roads as opposed to the interstate in that case. But there are separate standards in the thoroughfare overlay district that require either the front entrance to face the interstate or have a front-like facade. So in the interstate overlay case, it does allow a front-like facade. The thoroughfare overlay district does not, however. We're really learning ourselves tonight, huh?
I'm just referencing the fact
Yeah.
that you've got the interstate, you've got 32.
Yep.
We
Yes,
picked
so
32 because
the
we're
interstate,
not.
yeah, the interstate side, because the interstate overlay district allows it to just be a front-like facade if it's not the main entrance, which is what they've done in this case, is provide a front-like facade.
So they're going to put 3 front.
Yeah, well, I mean, their architecture does, essentially, it's very similar on the way around. The one we were most, in terms of the variance associated with the main entrance not being on South Street, we did make sure that there was an additional parapet and additional architectural features on South Street.
Got it. Clear as mud.
We don't always have three street frontages, so that this one is just a.
You did real good. I think the advertising's going to work. Coming from a guy that was on a billboard on 65, I think you're in good shape.
Nice plug, Corey. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. We will open to the public for comments. Just make sure you're signed in. Not seeing any, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any further questions or comments?
I feel like Ben's going to make us very, very difficult on this motion. Because we definitely want to, assuming we choose to move forward with the project.
Maybe Ben could
Yeah.
state a motion.
I think it's relatively straightforward. There's probably 2 motions we'll need to have.
Maybe you could, for like the first motion, maybe you could verbalize what you want to
Yeah.
hear. And
So
then
what
someone up here can say, so moved.
Yeah. So what I'd be looking for is a motion to approve the development plan associated with the Fairfield that's located at 410 Gateway Avenue.
So moved.
Pending TAC comments, I assume?
Yeah, pending completion of TAC comments. So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
And then secondarily, we just need
Yeah,
to
the second, we
table.
would just look for a motion to continue the Bar Louie Development Plan application to the June meeting.
So moved.
Do we need to call it the docket on that?
But I don't have a docket number yet. What we'll do is we'll actually
Just
establish
that we're
it.
removing it, maybe?
Yeah, we'll actually establish a docket number, and we will send out new notices for that one, since it's a new docket number.
I think we have a motion on the table.
I'll second.
Second,
Kevin's.
second from Heather. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business tonight? Ben, do you have anything else?
I have nothing else.
You have to entertain a motion? I didn't.
Okay, good. We did great.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, carries. Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.